Hi, everyone. So this is a little description of your cognitive psych activity that you'll be doing for this week. So for this activity, you're going to need something that will allow you to touch somebody with either one or two small tips. What I have here is I have two paper clips. One of the paper clips is unbent so that it just has one tip. The other one has two tips. You could do this with just one paper clip if that's all you had, but you don't need to have a paper clip. You could use pins if you had them, as long as you don't touch your person too hard. You could use two tips of a pencil. You could use two stalks of grass from outside. The point is you just need to have two tips that can be varying distances apart. You also need a ruler, and you need a partner who is willing to close their eyes. So to do this activity, you're going to identify 5 body regions. These could be any regions you want. Choose them at random. So you could have forehead, cheek, ear, tongue, neck, lower back, big toe, tip of finger, palm of hand. Choose 5 body regions. And with those 5 body regions, you're going to record those regions on your worksheet. You'll see that. I'm not going to share the screen right now. And then you're going to do this little test. So you need to be able to tell approximately how far apart your two tips are. I don't have a ruler in my house here, so I just downloaded this little ruler app on my phone, and my two tips on my paper clip are about 1 centimeter apart. They're a little wider than that, so I can actually squeeze them together just a little bit more. And if you want to, you can straighten these tips even more so that you can get a nice tight angle on that. So you're going to start with your first test on your first body area, and your partner is going to close their eyes. So their eyes are covered. This is, of course, my arm, but you're going to do this on your partner's arm if you chose this, or palm or tongue or forehead or whatever body part you chose. But your partner closes their eyes, and you're basically going to be touching them with either two tips or just one tip. And you're just going to ask them, did you feel one tip or two tips? And you're going to do about 5 times in each body area. So for example, your partner's eyes are closed, and you would say, okay, this is going to be 2 tips, but don't tell them. Did I touch you with 1 tip or 2 tips? Record their answer. They might say 1, they might say 2. Next, you're going to touch them again at random. 1 tip or 2 tips. Record their answer. 1 tip or 2 tips. And so you're going to record that. Do about 5 times on each body region with each distance. If they guess correctly each time, whether it's 2 tips or 1 tips, then you're going to continue on and push these 2 points together till they're about a ½ centimeter apart. So if I use my little ruler here, it does not have to be perfect. These are approximations, but I'm approximately a ½ centimeter apart. And so now I'm going to do the same thing on the same body region. Now, if your partner guessed correctly each time, this is when you should do this. If they made mistakes on this first trial at a ½ centimeter, you don't need to go any further. What you're trying to do is find out the distance apart for the tips at which they can no longer detect whether it's 1 or 2 tips. If you do 1 centimeter apart on this body region, and they're always saying it's 1 tip, it's 1 tip, it's 1 tip, even if you're doing 2 tips, you might consider expanding it wider. 2 tips or 1 tips, 2 tips or 1 tips, 2 tips or 1 tips. So test a few body regions. Ideally, you want to choose body regions that you think will be more or less sensitive, like some body regions that you think might be really sensitive and some that you think might be less sensitive, and run this test. So hopefully this explanation makes sense to you. 5 body regions, testing different distances, 2 or 1 tips, and seeing when your partner can not detect whether it's 2 tips or 1 tips. You might have to get this really close together for some body regions, something like this, something like this far apart, right? Before they cannot detect whether it's 1 or 2 tips. But that's what you're going to record. You have a worksheet to do, and then you're asked to think about the idea of localization And why do you think this happened? Why do you think in some places your partner couldn't detect whether it was 1 or 2? And then you're going to reverse it just so that you can have this experience too. So hopefully this activity makes sense. I wish you well in completing it. I'm looking forward to seeing what you find.